My aunt begged me for $3,000, then secretly pocketed $18,000 from insurance. My cousin, my closest friend, knew everything and stayed quiet. I didn't yell, didn't fight, I just left. But now, their world is about to shatter, and my phone won't stop ringing. I haven't spoken to my mom's side of the family in years, mostly because my mom is an unapologetic narcissist. Believe me, there's a laundry list of painful details behind that, but it's enough to know I've stayed away for my own sanity. Still, I'd kept a close bond with my uncle, his wife, my aunt by marriage, and their daughter, my cousin. She's 29 now, and up until recently, I would have called her my best friend, practically a sister. That's how close we were. About a year ago, my uncle reached out, sounding genuinely desperate. He and my aunt said they were in a severe financial bind, and asked if my partner and I could loan them $3,000 to help them get through it. They seemed so vulnerable, so sincere. Without hesitation, we agreed. We weren't rich ourselves, but we had savings. They were family. Money could be replaced, but trust and support were priceless, or so I thought. Weeks turned into months, and my aunt and uncle frequently apologized, insisting they were trying to scrape together the funds to repay us. Eventually, feeling the strain on our relationship and genuinely believing they were struggling, we told them not to worry. Consider it a gift from the heart, no strings attached. They acted so grateful. In hindsight, I wonder if that gratitude was ever real. Then, about 6 months ago, my aunt and uncle came for a visit. It was supposed to be simple, a casual dinner at our place. But halfway through the evening, disaster struck. My aunt went to sit down, and the chair beneath her completely gave way. She fell, breaking her ankle badly. I was mortified, apologizing profusely, devastated at the sight of her in pain. My aunt and uncle, however, quickly turned practical. They asked if we could claim the accident on our homeowner's insurance, citing the severe disruption the injury would cause to their daily lives, work, and finances. Of course, racked with guilt and feeling entirely responsible, we immediately complied. Our insurance covered it, and we hoped things would eventually return to normal. But then life threw another wrench in our plans. My partner and I had an investment property we decided to sell. The process was supposed to be straightforward, but the sale became an endless nightmare. A company showed strong interest, stringing us along for 4 excruciating months. No deposit, endless delays, empty promises, until they finally pulled out altogether. Now we were stuck holding on to a vacant property, juggling 2 mortgages, insurance payments, and 2 sets of utilities. Our financial situation turned dire quickly. Bills stacked up. Our savings dwindled to nothing. Each month became a cycle of anxiety. Fast forward to last weekend. My aunt, cousin, and I decided to take a much-needed girls' trip. Just us. First, it was wonderful. Laughter, late-night talks, and a brief escape from stress. But as the drinks flowed, so did secrets. My aunt, intoxicated and loose-lipped, let something slip that shattered everything. They had received $18,000 in compensation from the insurance claim, the claim we'd helped them file. My heart sank into my stomach. They had kept it hidden. All 3 of them, my aunt, uncle, and my cousin, had known for months and never breathed a word. I felt betrayed, sickened. Here we were, scraping by, stressed and desperate for even the smallest financial relief, and they had secretly pocketed thousands without even the courtesy to tell us. My cousin, my supposed best friend, simply glanced away and quietly went to bed when she saw my shocked expression. My aunt just laughed awkwardly and poured another drink, dismissing the entire conversation like it was nothing. I spent that night staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every assurance, every lie. By morning, I had made my decision. I packed quietly, left the rental early, and texted them both once I was far enough away to think clearly. I explained exactly why I left, how hurt and disgusted I felt by their deceit, their selfishness. I wasn't seeking revenge, just honesty. I needed them to understand how deep their betrayal ran. But their responses hit even harder. They accused me of ruining the weekend, of being childish, rude, and selfish for leaving without confrontation. My cousin, the person I had considered closest to me, played victim. She claimed she was caught in the middle, unable to do anything about it, as though she were powerless and innocent in their deception. They twisted the entire situation, casting themselves as victims and me as the irrational one. Their gaslighting brought back memories of my mother's emotional manipulation, the very toxicity I'd fought so hard to escape. I couldn't believe the audacity. Their greed had blindsided me. Money mattered more to them than family, than loyalty, than basic decency. I blocked their numbers, their social media, everything. Cutting them off was painful but necessary. They would no longer take advantage of my kindness, my trust. What they didn't realize was that, beneath my silence, plans were already forming. Because I knew something about my uncle and aunt, something I'd never thought I'd use, something that would change the entire story. They had no idea what they'd unleashed when they decided to betray me. And soon, they'd find out exactly what it felt like to be truly blindsided. Update 1. First off, thank you for all the supportive comments and messages. It's crazy how many of you have dealt with similar betrayals. Family can really cut the deepest. Anyway, it's been a couple of weeks and things haven't gotten easier. If anything, the reality has only sunk deeper, twisted itself tighter around my chest. After blocking my aunt, uncle, and cousin, I expected a few heated messages or maybe even some apologies, but instead I got silence, radio silence. That stung more than I'd admit out loud. It felt like they were relieved I'd cut ties, happy to move on without facing the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, my partner and I continued to struggle financially. The double mortgage drained our resources faster than we could replenish them, and stress started eating away at both of us. Then, a few days ago, things took another unexpected turn. It was around 9 at night, and I just finished putting away dinner dishes when my phone lit up. It was a message from an unknown number, a screenshot of a social media post from my cousin's Instagram. She had captioned it, "Some people walk away and blame everyone else. Family first, always red heart." My blood ran cold. Beneath it, friends and family members from my mom's side chimed in with support for her, painting me as someone petty, dramatic, and overly sensitive. The gaslighting was now public, and I was officially the villain in their narrative. For a moment, rage consumed me. How dare they rewrite history to fit their lies? But just as quickly, a strange calmness settled over me. I remembered something important, something they had clearly forgotten. Family secrets are rarely confined to one lie. Years ago, my uncle had gotten himself tangled in some questionable financial dealings. It was one of those hushed conversations that float around at family gatherings, everyone whispering behind closed doors but pretending everything was fine. I didn't know the full story back then, and honestly, I hadn't cared enough to dig deeper. Until now. I spent the next couple of nights sleepless, digging through old emails, archived family chats, and every public record I could find. Each piece felt small at first, insignificant on its own, but soon enough, patterns emerged. Patterns of financial desperation masked by false pride, quiet loans, unpaid debts, and even whispers of misappropriated funds. It wasn't just my partner and me who had been used. This had happened before, several times over, to multiple people in our extended family circle. The most disturbing revelation came from a message from an old family friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in ages. He wrote, "Saw your cousin's post. Funny she'd preach about family loyalty after what happened with your grandparents' estate. Guess history repeats itself." I froze. My grandparents' estate? I had never heard anything suspicious about their inheritance. It was split equally, fairly, among their children, including my mom and uncle. Or at least, that was what we were told. But as I dug deeper, the ugly truth surfaced. It turned out my uncle had somehow convinced my grandparents, late in their lives, to alter their will subtly but significantly, funneling more money into his control. Money meant to secure comfortable futures for all the grandchildren, including me, had mysteriously vanished, never reaching our generation. When my mom, flawed as she was, discovered this years ago, she had confronted him, resulting in their bitter estrangement, something I'd always mistakenly attributed solely to her toxic behavior. Everything was making sense now, the lies, the secrecy, the betrayal. This wasn't an isolated incident, it was a pattern. My uncle, aunt, and even my cousin were living in a web of manipulations they'd carefully constructed over decades, preying on trust and kindness, exploiting emotional bonds for financial gain. I sat with this revelation, heavy and bitter in my gut. My partner suggested confronting them, making it public, exposing every lie. But something stopped me. That kind of immediate, fiery revenge felt satisfying, but short-lived. I needed more than that. I needed the truth to speak clearly enough that denial wasn't an option. Instead, I chose a different approach. I reached out to another victim of their schemes, an uncle on my father's side who'd quietly lent money to my aunt and uncle years before. I told him everything. And to my surprise, he'd been quietly collecting his own set of receipts. Together, we formed a plan, not for revenge, but for accountability. 3 days ago, my aunt called from a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice, fake sweetness dripping with sarcasm, cut straight to the chase. "We heard you've been spreading rumors about us. Really mature, isn't it?" I remained calm, colder than I'd ever felt. "I didn't spread anything," I replied evenly. "I just uncovered what's already there." Funny how uncomfortable people get when the truth surfaces. She sputtered for a moment, clearly thrown off by my calmness. Then she hissed, venom unmistakable, "Be careful about the bridges you're burning. Family is forever, but forgiveness isn't." I laughed softly. "Forgiveness requires accountability," I told her, echoing words I'd seen online. "And accountability isn't something your side of the family understands." She hung up without another word. But this time, the silence felt powerful, not theirs, but mine. I had struck a nerve, revealed just enough of my hand to make them panic. And panic they did. This morning, I woke up to an email. Short, frantic, and dripping with false apologies, my uncle begged me to reconsider my stance. He wrote that families should support each other, mistakes happen, and forgiveness was crucial for moving forward. Yet, nowhere in that email did he admit wrongdoing. Nowhere did he mention the missing inheritance or acknowledge the deep harm they'd caused. And in that moment, reading his desperate words, I realized something profound. They weren't sorry they hurt us, they were sorry they'd been caught. And people like that only change when the cost of staying the same becomes too high. So, tomorrow morning, my uncle and I, the one who'd also been betrayed, will be meeting with a lawyer. We have documents, records, and enough proof to ensure accountability isn't optional anymore. We're not seeking revenge, we're just shining a bright, unflinching light on every dark corner they've hidden in. My aunt, uncle, and cousin thought this was just about money, but they're about to find out it's about so much more. It's about truth, integrity, and justice. And unlike them, we won't hide behind secrecy. We'll show them exactly what it feels like to face the consequences of their choices. I'll update again soon. For now, stay careful who you trust. Sometimes betrayal wears a familiar face, smiling right across the dinner table. Update 2. I can't even begin to thank you all enough for the support and messages after my last update. Seriously, it's surreal seeing just how many of you resonate with the story. Sadly, it seems toxic family dynamics are way too common, but at least we're not alone in dealing with this mess. Let me dive right back in because things have escalated way faster than I anticipated. As planned, I met with my uncle from my dad's side and our lawyer earlier this week. Sitting in that sterile office, surrounded by piles of paperwork and decades of deception laid bare, felt strangely validating. For the first time since discovering their betrayal, I felt like someone was finally listening, someone who could actually do something about it. Our lawyer was calm, professional, and direct. She examined everything we presented, the records of loans, the altered will, and the missing inheritance money my uncle siphoned off years ago. Her exact words still echo in my mind. This goes beyond mere family disagreements. This is systematic financial manipulation. And then she asked the question I knew was coming but still dreaded hearing. Are you prepared for this to become public? Public. The word made my stomach knot, but my resolve hardened. I glanced at my uncle, whose face was weary but determined. We both knew there was no other choice. Yes, I finally replied, more firmly than I felt. They made their choices. Now it's time to live with them. Just as we finalized the paperwork to formally pursue legal action, my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, my cousin. After weeks of radio silence, she finally reached out. Her message was simple but carefully crafted. Can we please talk? This has gotten out of hand. Let's just fix it. I stared at the words, feeling anger rise like bile in my throat. Fix it? Like this was a broken dish, not years of calculated betrayal. But curiosity got the better of me. Maybe, just maybe, she felt remorse. So, against my better judgment, I agreed to meet. We sat face to face in a quiet coffee shop, a place we'd once frequented happily, now tainted by awkward silence and simmering tension. My cousin looked tired, bags under her eyes, nervously twisting her fingers. Still, when she spoke, her words weren't apologetic, they were defensive. Look, I didn't know about all the other stuff, she began, eyes darting around, avoiding mine. You have to understand, I was put in an impossible position. Impossible? I echoed quietly, disbelief sharpening my voice. You knew they took $18,000 from our insurance and didn't say a word. That wasn't impossible, it was convenient. She flinched but pushed forward. They're my parents. What was I supposed to do, betray them? Funny, I snapped bitterly, betrayal didn't seem to bother you when it was directed at me. The conversation spiraled rapidly, with her trying every angle, sympathy, guilt, even veiled threats of family fallout to persuade me to drop everything. Not once did she truly acknowledge the pain they'd caused. Not once did she show real remorse. Finally, exhausted by her games, I stood up to leave. This isn't getting us anywhere, I said flatly. When you're ready to stop pretending you're a victim and actually hold your parents accountable, maybe then we'll talk. Her expression turned ice cold, her mask finally slipping away. If you go forward with this, she hissed under her breath, you'll regret it. Family doesn't forget. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice to a whisper. Neither do I. I left the cafe with my heart hammering. Her threat had shaken me more than I'd admit, but beneath my fear, something stronger was rising, a quiet, undeniable strength. She confirmed what I already suspected. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was a battle over truth and the power dynamics that kept toxic families together. 2 days later, as if on cue, things escalated again. Our lawyer filed a preliminary case against my uncle and aunt for misappropriation and fraud. The lawsuit was now officially public record and the backlash began almost immediately. My aunt's social media exploded with outrage. She painted herself as a victim of false accusations, martyring herself with posts full of cryptic, vague quotes about betrayal and lies. Friends, extended family, and even people I barely knew started flooding my messages, some supportive but many hostile, accusing me of trying to ruin family relationships over petty disagreements. But just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I received a late-night phone call from my mom, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. My stomach twisted in dread as I answered. Are you happy now? Her voice was cold, venomous. You've dragged all of us into your pathetic vendetta. Is that what you wanted? Mom, I replied cautiously, this isn't about revenge. It's about the truth. She laughed bitterly, cutting me off. You're so naive. Truth doesn't matter. Family matters. Loyalty matters. Loyalty? My voice rose sharply. Is that what you call stealing from your own family? She paused just a beat too long and her voice softened slightly but not out of sympathy. I warned you about them years ago. But you're no better, dragging us all into this circus. Just know you've destroyed whatever chance we had of ever being a family again. She hung up abruptly, leaving me standing there, the dial tone echoing emptily in my ear. Her words cut deeper than I'd expected, reviving old wounds I'd fought hard to bury. But beneath the sting was a clearer realization. I'd been carrying the weight of her disappointment for too long, and it was time to let it go. The next morning, the fallout continued. Local gossip spread quickly, painting me as vindictive and bitter. My aunt and uncle were scrambling, frantically reaching out to mutual contacts to spin their narrative. It was exhausting, but the truth was finally coming out piece by piece. Then something unexpected happened. An email popped into my inbox from an unfamiliar address. Read carefully, it began, and my heart raced. Attached were documents, receipts, and emails I'd never seen, proof from someone inside their circle, someone close enough to see the whole picture clearly. The sender signed off with just initials, leaving me wondering who else had been silently waiting, watching, and finally willing to come forward. Armed with this new evidence, our lawyer assured us our case was stronger than ever. But she also warned they won't go down without a fight. Be ready. And ready I am. This isn't just about money anymore, it's about dismantling years of lies, manipulation, and abuse masked as love. It's about reclaiming the dignity stolen from so many people who trusted them. It's about justice, pure and simple. They thought I'd back down, fold under pressure. They thought family ties and guilt trips would silence me like they always had before. But they're wrong. Because now there's no going back. They've opened Pandora's box, and every secret, every lie, every betrayal they've tried to hide behind smiles and sweet words is coming out. Stay tuned. The final chapter of this twisted family saga is coming soon. And something tells me the end won't be what any of us expect. Final update. Hey everyone. Sorry for the delay. I know this update was long overdue. But as you'll soon understand, things got messy fast, and I've needed some time to process everything. Let's jump right in, because this final update has a twist even I didn't see coming. When we last left off, I'd received a mysterious email full of evidence. Solid, undeniable proof of my uncle and aunt's deceit. I spent days poring through it all, stunned by how deep their web of lies truly went. It wasn't just the $18,000 they'd hidden from us or even the altered will. They'd defrauded other relatives, quietly siphoning tens of thousands of dollars over years. I was dealing with serial manipulators, people who had never faced a single consequence for their actions. Armed with this new information, our lawyer advised filing a secondary, more severe complaint, alleging systemic fraud and embezzlement. It's serious, she told us, her voice calm but firm. This will likely lead to criminal charges. Are you prepared for that? Criminal charges. The words echoed in my mind, heavier than I'd anticipated. Family or not, they'd hurt countless people. My resolve hardened. Yes, I said finally. They've made their choices. We filed immediately. The effect was immediate and explosive. Suddenly, my aunt and uncle couldn't ignore or spin the story anymore. It was public, concrete, and damning. Friends and relatives who'd previously defended them began distancing themselves, wary of being dragged down in the fallout. Days after the second filing, I received frantic texts from my cousin. Please stop this, she pleaded. You don't realize what you're doing to our family. I stared at her message, cold fury mixing with a strange pity. She still didn't get it. I didn't do this, I replied simply. Your parents did. No response came. Instead, an even more surprising visitor showed up at my doorstep a week later. My uncle, the man at the heart of it all. He stood there, looking worn, older somehow. There were no fake smiles or calculated tears this time, just raw desperation etched into his face. Can we talk? He asked weakly, almost politely. Part of me wanted to slam the door in his face, but curiosity and something deeper, maybe a need for closure, made me step aside. He followed me into the kitchen, sitting at our table, eyes fixed on his trembling hands. I'm sorry, he began quietly, voice shaking. I never meant for it to go this far. I stared, anger bubbling again. Then why did you let it? He sighed deeply. Pride, greed, I don't know. It felt harmless at first, borrowing here and there, adjusting some numbers. We always intended to fix it. But you never did, I snapped. You ruined people's lives. He looked up at me, tears glistening in his eyes, genuine regret mixed with shame. We were drowning, he whispered. Every lie led to another. It spiraled. Before we knew it, there was no going back. But you knew exactly what you were doing when you took that insurance money from us. I pressed, bitterness edging my voice. You knew we were struggling, yet you did nothing. He nodded weakly. It was selfish, wrong. I can't change it. But these charges, this will destroy us. And what you did destroyed trust, families, relationships. I countered sharply. Actions have consequences. He sat silently for a long moment, processing my words. Is there any way you'll drop the charges? He finally asked, desperation thick in his voice. No, I said firmly, unwavering. You made your choices. Now you'll face them. He left shortly after, defeated and resigned. Watching him go didn't bring satisfaction, just an empty heaviness. But I knew I'd done the right thing. Days turned into weeks. Media attention swelled locally as details of their schemes emerged. Eventually, the authorities stepped in, conducting an official investigation. Charges followed swiftly: fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. My aunt and uncle's carefully curated lives imploded spectacularly, leaving them isolated and publicly shamed. Yet the biggest shock was still coming. One evening, just as things started calming down, I received another late-night call, this time from my cousin. Her voice was soft, barely recognizable, stripped of all arrogance. I turned them in, she whispered abruptly. Confused, I pressed, What are you talking about? The email you got with evidence, she confessed shakily. That was me. I was speechless, stunned. But why? Her voice broke, tears audible. You were right. I knew what they were doing. I justified it, ignored it. But after seeing your pain, I couldn't live with it. They weren't going to stop. It had to end. I sat in silence, processing this revelation. She'd betrayed me once, but she'd also risked everything to expose her parents. Why didn't you say something sooner? I finally asked. Fear, she admitted quietly. Fear of being alone. But I realize now family means nothing if it's built on lies. We talked late into the night, both of us cautiously hopeful for the first time in months. She apologized sincerely, accepting responsibility for her part, acknowledging the damage she'd done. That conversation didn't erase the past, but it began a slow process of healing, of cautiously rebuilding trust on honest terms. In the weeks that followed, my aunt and uncle's trial proceeded quickly, concluding with them facing significant financial penalties and probation. Their reputations irreversibly tarnished, they disappeared quietly, moving far away to escape the whispers and shame. My cousin began therapy, confronting her role in the family's toxic patterns. She's working hard on herself, something I cautiously admire, even if forgiveness comes slowly. And me? My partner and I finally sold our investment property, stabilizing our finances and reclaiming our peace. More importantly, I learned something profound. Revenge isn't satisfaction, it's clarity. It's watching people face the truth of their own making, knowing you never had to become them to find justice. We're considering moving, finding a fresh start away from these memories. But wherever we go, we'll carry the lessons learned here. Loyalty means nothing without honesty, and family isn't defined by blood, it's built by actions, trust, and respect. To everyone who's followed my story, thank you. I hope it helps someone else find the strength to confront toxic relationships and stand up for themselves, no matter how daunting it seems. Remember, some betrayals can never be fully repaired, but you can always choose to heal. And sometimes, stepping away from toxicity is the bravest form of justice there is. Stay strong, everyone. And thanks again for being part of this journey.